Anatomy of a Fall is a 2023 French legal drama film, directed by Justine Triet and starring Sandra Hüller as a writer who is accused of murdering her husband. The film won the Palme d'Or and the Palme d'Or Award at the 2023 Cannes Film Festival and was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. The plot of Anatomy of a Fall is as follows. Sandra Voiter is a German novelist who lives in France with her husband, Samuel Maleski, an aspiring writer, and their blind son, Daniel. One day, Daniel finds his father dead on the ground after falling from a window. Sandra claims it was an accident, but the police suspect she killed him and pushed him from the balcony. Sandra is arrested and put on trial, where she faces the evidence against her, such as a recording of a violent argument, blood spatter, and an autopsy report. Sandra's defense team argues that Samuel fell from the attic window and hit his head on a shed, while the prosecution tries to prove that Sandra hit him with a blunt object and staged the scene. Daniel, who is the only witness, is torn between his loyalty to his mother and his doubts about her innocence. The film ends with a twist that reveals the truth about what happened. Or maybe not. I think what makes Anatomy of a Fall a great film is that it explores its pursuit of truth in a way that is similar to another great film, perhaps the greatest courtroom drama ever put on cinema screens, which has also influenced many other great films coming after it, that film being Kurosawa Akira's film Rashomon. Rashomon is a classic Japanese film that is set in feudal Japan and revolves around the murder of a samurai and the rape of his wife in a forest. The film presents 4 contradictory accounts of what happened, each one given by a different character: the bandit, the wife, the samurai through a medium, and the woodcutter. The film also explores the themes of human nature, honor, and guilt, and how they are influenced by the perception of reality. Anatomy of a Fall and Rashomon are both films that deal with the theme of subjective truth and the unreliability of human memory. They both use a non-linear narrative structure to present different versions of the same event, leaving the audience to decide which one is more credible or accurate. They also explore the psychological and moral implications of lying, confessing, and witnessing. However, there are also some differences between the two films. Anatomy of a Fall is a contemporary courtroom thriller that focuses on the death of a writer and the trial of his wife, who is accused of murdering him. The film presents 4 possible scenarios of what happened, each one influenced by the testimony of a different character: the wife, the blind son, the lawyer, and the judge. The film also examines the themes of marriage, writing, and justice, and how they are affected by the manipulation of truth. Both films are masterpieces of cinema that deal with the concept of multiple truths and perspectives and challenge the viewers to question their own assumptions and biases, and to empathize with the characters' perspectives. While both films end without leaving a definitive answer to resolve its mystery, leaving it up to the audience to come to their own conclusions, Anatomy of a Fall has one more important question to ask. One of the questions, perhaps the main question, asked by many of the people who have watched the film has been whether Sandra is guilty of murdering her husband or not. The answer to this question will leave people debating for years, but another question I believe that is important to ask is about the title of the film. What kind of fall does the title allude to? I believe the film is not just about the fall that Sandra's husband had that may or may not have resulted in his death, but the fall may also refer to the decline in marriages and the meaning of love throughout the world in general, especially in societies that run on the engine of capitalism. So the film not only takes the form of a murder mystery, but I argue that Anatomy of a Fall is also a representation of the anatomy of what has made many marriages and relationships fall from grace. The answer to the question of what fall the film alludes to can be an important one, as it reflects something about our contemporary culture and the nature of love and relationships in the world we live in today. To look at the film Anatomy of a Fall from this angle, let's turn our attention to Erich Fromm. Erich Fromm was a notable German-American psychoanalyst and social philosopher born on March 23, 1900 in Frankfurt am Main, Germany, and passed away on March 18, 1980 in Muralto, Switzerland. He is well known for his theories that combine psychology and society and his critical stance on Sigmund Freud's focus on unconscious drives, emphasizing instead the role of societal factors in human psychology. Fromm's work explored the interaction between an individual's personality and the cultural environment, suggesting that both biology and culture shape personality. He received his PhD from the University of Heidelberg in 1922 and later trained in psychoanalysis at the University of Munich and the Berlin Psychoanalytic Institute. After fleeing Nazi Germany in 1933, Fromm moved to the United States, where he became associated with the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. He held various academic positions, including faculty roles at Columbia University, Bennington College, the National Autonomous University of Mexico, Michigan State University, and New York University. Fromm's first major work, Escape from Freedom, 1941, is among his most influential, analyzing the rise of totalitarian movements and the psychological challenges of modernization. He believed that understanding basic human needs is essential to understanding society, and the social systems often create conflicts by making it difficult to satisfy these needs. His ideas on humanism, social theory, Marxism, and the modes of existence, being and having, as well as his concepts of social character and character orientation, have had a lasting impact on psychoanalytic thought and social philosophy. Erich Fromm's idea that love today is not love because of capitalism is based on his critique of the modern consumer society and its impact on human relationships. He argues that capitalism creates a culture of conformity, narcissism, and alienation which prevents people from developing their true individuality and expressing genuine love. According to Fromm, love is not a passive feeling, but an active skill that requires discipline, concentration, patience, faith, and the overcoming of narcissism. He also distinguishes between different forms of love, such as brotherly love, motherly love, erotic love, self-love, and the love of God. He believes that these forms of love are essential for human well-being and happiness. However, he claims that capitalism undermines these forms of love by promoting a false sense of freedom, independence, and individuality, while in reality making people dependent on the market, the state, and the mass media. He also criticizes capitalism for reducing human beings to commodities, objects, and functions, which devalues their uniqueness and dignity. He says that capitalism fosters a culture of consumption where people are constantly seeking more and more things, and where love is seen as another thing to be acquired, used, and discarded. Fromm argues that this culture of consumption erodes the true meaning and value of love, and makes people unable to love themselves and others in a genuine and mature way. He says that people become addicted to the illusion of love, which is based on superficial attraction, sexual satisfaction, or emotional dependency, but which lacks the depth, commitment, and responsibility of real love. He also warns that this illusion of love can lead to frustration, boredom, loneliness, and violence. Fromm proposes that the only way to overcome this situation is to develop a new mode of existence, which he calls the humanistic orientation. This orientation is based on the recognition of the human essence, which is the capacity for reason, love, and creativity. He says that people need to cultivate these capacities and use them to create a more humane and democratic society where love is not a commodity but a way of life. What do you think of Fromm's idea? Do you agree or disagree with him? If you agree that capitalism undermines the notion of love and is damaging to relationships, here are some thoughts on the theme of capitalism throughout the film Anatomy of a Fall. 1. Capitalism as a subtext. While the film's primary focus is on Sandra's legal battle, capitalism subtly permeates the narrative. It operates as a subtext, influencing characters' motivations, choices, and the power dynamics at play. Capitalism often thrives on individual ambition, competition, and the pursuit of wealth. These themes intersect with Sandra's struggle to maintain her reputation, protect her family, and navigate the legal system. 2. Economic pressures and desperation. Sandra, as a writer, likely faces economic pressures. The publishing industry can be ruthless, favoring marketable stories over artistic integrity. Capitalism drives publishers to seek profitable narratives, potentially compromising Sandra's creative freedom. Her husband's death adds financial strain. In a capitalist society, financial stability is crucial, and desperate circumstances can lead to drastic actions. 3. Legal battles and financial interests. Sandra's fight for innocence becomes a legal battle, a microcosm of societal power structures. Capitalism influences legal proceedings where lawyers, judges, and juries operate within a system that values outcomes and financial interests. Lawyers, motivated by fees and reputation, may prioritize winning over justice. Capitalism's influence on legal representation can impact Sandra's chances of proving her innocence. Media sensationalism and profit. The medium plays a significant role in shaping public opinion. Capitalist media outlets thrive on sensationalism, scandal, and tragedy. Sandra's case becomes a lucrative story, attracting attention and boosting ratings. The film may explore how capitalism commodifies personal tragedies, turning them into entertainment for profit. Sandra's struggle becomes a marketable narrative, blurring the line between truth and spectacle. 5. Class disparities and legal access. Capitalism perpetuates class disparities. Sandra's access to legal representation, resources, and social networks impacts her defense. Wealthy defendants often fare better in legal battles. Conversely, those without financial means face an uphill battle. Sandra's fight against the system reflects broader societal inequalities exacerbated by capitalism. And 6. Existential crisis and materialism. Samuel's death triggers Sandra's existential crisis. Capitalism often ties identity to material success. Samuel's academic career, their mountain chalet, and their visually impaired son's well-being all intersect with capitalist notions of achievement. Sandra grapples with her own desires, ambitions, and the weight of societal expectations. Capitalism's influence on personal fulfillment and happiness becomes a central theme. Anatomy of a Fall relates to capitalism and its effects on marriages and relationships in several ways. One way is by showing how the market and the state influence the production and consumption of culture, especially literature. For example, Sandra's novels are praised by critics and readers, but they are also subject to censorship, plagiarism, and commodification. Her husband, Samuel, who is also a writer, struggles to find his voice and his audience in a competitive and commercialized literary field. He also faces pressure from his university, which is funded by a private corporation that has vested interest in his research. The film also depicts how capitalism affects the personal and professional relationships of the characters, such as their marriage, their friendship, their loyalty, and their ethics. For example, Sandra's lawyer, Vincent, who is also her former lover, uses his legal skills and his connections to manipulate the truth and the evidence in her favor, but he also has ulterior motives and conflicts of interest. The film also explores how capitalism shapes the perception and the manipulation of truth, especially in the context of the trial. For example, the prosecution and the defense use different strategies and tactics to persuade the jury and the public, such as rhetoric, emotion, logic, and media. The film also questions the role and the responsibility of the judge, who has to balance his duty and his compassion, and who has to decide the fate of Sandra based on the available and the conflicting information. In summary, Anatomy of a Fall subtly weaves capitalism into its fabric, exploring how economic systems intersect with personal lives, justice, and storytelling. Just as Samuel's fall from the attic window has layers of meaning, so too does the film's exploration of capitalism, both visible and hidden. Throughout Anatomy of a Fall, we can see the subtle effects that capitalism has on the legal process and the thought process in deciding to marry and maintain relationships. But what is it about capitalism that is so detrimental to loving relationships? Among the many truths half-truths, lies, and secrets told in the film, one scene is most telling of the layered themes and meanings of Anatomy of a Fall. During the pivotal scene of the court and members of the jury listening to the audio of Sandra and Samuel arguing at their home, we often hear about what one has given to the other in their relationship and their feelings of an uneven reciprocity in their relationship. This give and take frame of mind is the basis of business. The emphasis on give and take is the structure of the business mind and is fundamentally the antithesis of love, which is about giving without any expectation of receiving anything in return. In capitalist realism, love is simply a fantasy. Falling for one is the anatomy of our end, while falling for the other is the anatomy of our rise. I leave the conclusion up to you. Have you seen Anatomy of a Fall, Rashomon, or read books written by Erich Fromm? I'd love to know your thoughts on all of these great works of literature and cinema. Thank you so much for visiting the right table. I wish you all the best. Have a great day.